Hey everybody, what's up? It's Sam Dunn back for Overkill reviews in the Banger Bar. It's been a while. I got a few updates for you before we launch into a new release that I'm pretty excited about. What have I been up to? Well, I've been jamming with my boy Rory, making some riffs, working on some new stuff that I can't wait to announce soon. Some new metal related stuff coming your way. From Banger. Got some shows I'm really excited about seeing this summer in Toronto, namely Gojira and Mastodon, and then Pantera and Lamb of God in August. Pretty stoked, but most importantly, I wanted to mention our brand new metal trivia game called Metalheads. Check it out. There's a few episodes up there. There's 30 in total. I've been watching them and screaming at my computer screen because I'm like, I can't believe you don't know that Fenris works for the Norwegian Postal Service.
He's a little famous for having a job you wouldn't expect.
Like mailman or something?
I wouldn't be surprised, but he's a representative in politics for where he lives. Problem is, I don't know if that counts as a part-time job. I have to fold here and pick a different category, unfortunately.
The correct answer was postal worker.
Oh, shit.
Hell yeah.
Anyway, that's a obscure rabbit hole. Let's get out of that and get into the review. If you haven't guessed it already from the props in front of me on the bar, well, then you're not really paying attention. So pretty excited about what I actually called a new release, but it's not really a new release at all. That's right, it's CAVALERA with their new takes on the Cogumelo Records classics Bestial Devastation, or Bestial, depending on what part of the world you come from, and Morbid Visions, released today worldwide on Nuclear Blast Records. I don't know about Abayo and Sepultura. It's a long story. What do you need to know? They're the biggest extreme metal band ever to come from the Southern Hemisphere, I think. End of story. What I really want to talk about are these. For those that are old enough to know, there was a time when the metal underground survived and thrived on tape trading. And what I have here is I dug up and blew the dust off the very first copies I received of Sepultura's Bestial Devastation and Sepultura Morbid Visions. I got these tapes in my early teens, and these were the first versions that I played on the OG Overkill, which was Overkill Radio on CFUV Radio in Victoria, BC. What else we got on this tape? Whiplash, Power and Pain, Advance, for those that remember Whiplash from the New York area, and Slaughterlord 86 Rehearsal. Does anybody else remember Slaughterlord? They were like this mysterious, like almost Scandinavian-esque death thrash metal band from Australia who we thought were super cool and super intense. And what else is on here? The first ever copy I got of Death's first album, Scream Bloody Gore. These don't look like much, kids, but these are how the extreme metal community was built back in the day. Anyway, enough grandpa time. I brought the vinyl as well. Morbid Visions, Bestial Devastation, Cogumelo, Bullet Belt. That's all you need to know. The best part is back cover photo, Vanya. Trivia, who's Vanya? Max and Igor's mom. I love it. And of course, I couldn't resist bringing down the copy of my favorite Sepultura record, Beneath the Remains, and of course, Arise. Anyway, enough about the props. Let's get into these re-records. All right, so I'll call it Sepultura, one of my all-time favorite extreme metal bands. Been listening to them since way back when. And these particular recordings were the muddiest, kind of grittiest extreme metal that I could find alongside Venom, Bathory, Celtic Frost, early Creator, early Destruction. The character of these early albums really is super primitive, super lo-fi production. You can even tell on Morbid Visions the guitars are not in tune all of the time, but that has become part of the charm of these records. Obviously, there's a lot of timing. I mean, Igor, bless his soul, is trying to beat out some pretty complicated double bass patterns, and he's just sort of barely hanging in there for most of it. So Troops of Doom, of course, kind of became like a minor classic in the live sets of Sepultura over the years. They still continue to play it live. But overall, interesting, I was listening to these recently. I almost feel like the original production on Bestial Devastation stands up a little bit better than Morbid Visions. Morbid Visions, maybe they were trying to go for something beefier and higher production value, but I think actually over time hasn't stood the test of time quite as much as the original EP. But anyway, enough about the OG stuff. Let's talk about the new takes on it. It's a pretty ballsy move to go back to your first two releases and redo them, and I guess have the confidence and the hubris to think that you're going to come at it with a sound and an approach that is worthwhile. What am I trying to say? For me, when you go back and try to do a modern take on music that was made almost 40 years ago, it kind of like there's more opportunities to fuck it up than to get it right. But I'm happy to report, I think these new takes on the EP and the first LP are really fucking bang on. The CAVALERA brothers have found a way, I think, really to kind of capture the raw spirit of these very early songs without nudging it too far into the processed typewriter drum, overly mixed, overly EQ'd sound that we get, for better or for worse, out of a lot of present day death metal. What do I love? They've kept like the man in the bottom of the giant cave reverb kind of vocal effect, which I think probably when they did it back in the original days, you know, they were worshiping at the altar of Kronos or Mila or Tom Warrior, kind of going for that vibe. What do I also love, for the real nerds in the house, is the yeah, it's the Coke bottle toms. That was such a hallmark, especially of the early Creator records that were a feature on these early Sepultura records, and they've retained in the re-records. And maybe to state the obvious, one of the things I love about these re-records is you can hear the riffs. You can really hear the riffs. And I've got to say, like, a lot of the riffs on these songs like War, Crucifixion, Funeral Rites, even Necromancer from the original EP, there's a lot of really good riffs on these records. But because we were talking 85, 86, you got to understand, like, producers, engineers didn't really know how to capture the sound of extreme metal yet. You know, you had Scott Burns in Florida just kind of getting started, and a couple of dudes over in Europe kind of trying to figure out how to get the drums to sound right. So it's really great to hear 2023 takes on these songs where you can really pick out riffs that have stood the test of time way better than what I thought. You know, for me, because these albums have really brought back to the fore what I consider to be some fairly underappreciated, like, bedrock releases in extreme metal, I don't really have any negatives. I love the production. I love the vibe of it. I love the fact that they retain some of those original sounds, and yet it's bigger, it's stronger, it's clearer, all of those features. There's not really any negatives for me. They kind of nailed it, which made me think, maybe let's put in the comments other early thrash, death, black metal releases that you would like to see the bands go back and re-record. Destruction, Sentence of Death. When You're talking about music that's been with you for nearly 40 years, and were, for me at least, and for probably many of the viewers, were albums that kind of started us on this path of loving underground metal, and then to do re-records of them in a way that just feels so like authentic and true to their original intent. It's hard to find any negatives, to be honest. And so for me, drum roll, doesn't happen often. I'm gonna give it 5 out of 5 on Overkill Reviews.